I thought that I was getting a locally only Wi-Fi doorbell, but as I found using ElastiFlow, looking through the dashboards, I looked at my top talkers and realized that this doorbell was sending out a lot of stuff onto the public internet somehow. And it ends up that, sure enough, there's a stream protocol and a hole punch that is done by default that was sending motion data and any kind of video footage to the doorbell provider's AWS instance.
Welcome to the podcast dedicated to the art and science of observability. This is Signal Over Noise. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Signal Over Noise. So most of our customers here at ElastiFlow started with a free trial in their Homelab. Actually, most of the team here at ElastiFlow is running ElastiFlow in their Homelab. So I thought it would be really great to bring on some of my friends, and we're going to talk about how they got started with their Homelab, what their setup looks like, and we'll share some tips, tricks, and best practices. So for today's episode, I am bringing on Madison Grubb, Senior SRE here at ElastiFlow, and Brad Collins, Sales Engineer here at ElastiFlow. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Good to be here again.
Awesome. So I thought we'd start today's episode talking a little bit about what your first setup looked like. So rolling back the clocks a little bit. Madison, can you talk about what your first Homelab looked like?
It's had many different iterations, but the very beginning, it was an old Dell laptop that I think I got from either my dad or my uncle. And I just wiped everything, put Linux on it, and started with a Minecraft server, but kind of branched out from there as things got more and more interesting. Because all you really need at the end of the day is a router, some kind of computer, and a way to connect it. And that's it. So that's how I started. It's gotten a little more sophisticated since then, but started with an old laptop like a lot of people do.
That's awesome. So super accessible, something that most people probably have, either laying around the house
broke
or
college student. Yeah.
Wipe the dust off of it and get a toy out of it. Brad, how about you? As a sales engineer, I imagine your setup might be a little different than someone on the DevOps side of things.
Yeah, I have to focus mine on the ability to show cool things quickly. So I have more of a fire and forget setup. Nothing that I have to worry about, that I have to manage. I just kind of bought it all and hope that it worked together. And fortunately it does. So, but it'll be interesting. It's been very interesting to see what ElastiFlow has been able to uncover for me in that type of environment where you have limited control.
I like it. So add to cart, plug and play, ready to rock type of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Same ecosystem, all Ubiquity gear, just, plug it in and you're done.
Interesting. Which, Madison, from what I understand, you're more of an open source guy, liking to roll your own solution. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like some of the open source tools that you use and maybe why open source and some of the things to watch out for?
Well, I guess as a lot of SRE and DevOps people, I'm a little bit of a masochist. I like to mess around with computers a little bit more than I probably should. But I think there's a lot of good things that come from using open source solutions. So I like to use like OpenWRT and things like that for my router setup. That way I kind of really have an easy way to jump in, administer, and audit everything that's happening on my router, because I know what's happening on the OS level. And then from I know I said I started with a laptop. At this point, I've got a couple of nodes with a little Nook style computers. And I think nowadays it's become so commonplace to just throw software on these that it's kind of a no-brainer to be able to just throw up like Ubuntu or Proxmox or something like that. And start managing your servers in a way that you can personally audit. I think that's really important, especially if you're in the open source world or if you're into the DevOps and SRE stuff. A lot of people want to know what's running and why. Not knocking Ubiquity, they make some really awesome stuff, and it is very much a plug and play thing. But as someone who wants to see the guts and know what's underneath, I think there's so much opportunity and availability now because you can do that with OpenWRT or all the different Linux distributions. We have so many Kubernetes distributions. There's a bunch of stuff. The world is your oyster.
I like that. So we talk a lot about what that setup looked like. I'm curious, use case wise, what were you hoping to find, or what did you expect to find in your Homelab? And is that how it all shook out, or do you maybe catch some things that you weren't necessarily expecting?
Yeah. So There's a couple of things that were a little bit unexpected, but one of the cool things about having a small home network is you get to have that data sovereignty, right? I'm in control of my own data in my local network, right? The DVDs and videos that I've had are all digitized, and I can play around with them. If I want to talk to like an LLM, I have a little tiny AI box that I can talk to that's using local models. All of my documents, all of my personal information, that kind of stuff that usually a lot of people would use like a Google Drive or something like that. I have a little Nextcloud instance where I can host that stuff myself and still be able to do all the cool collaboration tools, with my friends and family as well. With that, again, I'm a little bit on the paranoid side, probably just because, it's hard to see the whole network and not be a little bit paranoid, right? And one of the cool use cases I've seen recently is a few days ago, I got a new Wi-Fi doorbell just so I could, watch stuff. I hooked it up with is it Matter? I can't remember the specific protocol, but it was basically one of the Home Assistant plugins. And it's because I use Home Assistant for most things in my Homelab, and for my house as well. And the big problem was I thought that I was getting a locally only Wi-Fi doorbell. But as I found using ElastiFlow's information, looking through the dashboards, I looked at my top talkers and realized that this doorbell was sending out a lot of stuff onto the public internet somehow. And it ends up that, sure enough, there's a stream protocol and a hole punch that is done by default that was sending motion data and any kind of video footage to the doorbell provider's AWS instance in this case.
Yikes.
So yeah, not great. I didn't love that. But another cool thing about using open source tooling here is I saw that. I saw it on my top end dashboards. I saw that it was sending a bunch of data out and went, okay, well, I know the address. I'll just block it. So I jump into my router, set up a new firewall rule, block it so it's not sending out any egress, and ta-da, now it is local only for real this time.
No, really, I mean it this time. I love that. So
yes,
super easily. That's really awesome. And now, Brad, I know you wrote a blog a couple weeks ago talking about some things that you found in your home lab, specifically your 3D printer. Curious if you can kind of recap that blog for those that maybe haven't read it yet, and we'll link to that blog in the show notes too. But yeah, what's the TLDR there?
Yeah, it's interesting, hearing Madison go through his experience and how mine's just a little bit different, but it's both of us are born from a natural curiosity of trying to figure out, hey, what's really happening? And a lot of our customers are trying to figure out what's really happening. And so once I stood up ElastiFlow in my home network, so, I have, like I said, I have kind of the add to cart ubiquity set up, very easy, but I lack the control that Madison has. I have to accept some things that, while there is a firewall, it's very robust, there's a lot of capabilities, there are some things that I lose the ability to do. So I have to, be aware of that. So it was interesting whenever I stood up ElastiFlow for the first time and started looking at data and learned that there was one device on my network that was making tons of connections outside to various places across the US and in Singapore. And it turns out it was one of my two 3D printers. And it's a great use case for, hey, I'm looking for IoT rogue devices, or, and as a sales engineer, that's the kind of story I love. So I get to use my home lab in my demos with our potential customers all the time now for that specific reason. But it was interesting to see what was really happening, because it turns out that this 3D printer is actually making DNS requests about 4 times a second all the time, 24 hours a day.
That is,
yeah. So
wow.
in 24 hours, there'll be 300,000 requests. So it's insane. But yeah, and doing a little research on Reddit and all the good blogs out there, it's a known thing with these Elegoo printers.
Interesting. So I love that you brought up kind of like the trade-offs of the plug and play, that add to cart, and the what you just kind of have to accept when you purchase from a vendor like that, versus the open source and having more of that control over what's in your environment for the most part. So I think that's really interesting. Oh, for those listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you won't be able to see the section, but definitely encourage you to go to our website, go over to YouTube and take a look. But for those watching, I wanted to actually take a look at what you're seeing in your home environments. Brad, do you want to go ahead and maybe give us a look at what your setup looks like and what we're seeing?
So one
One
of
of
the
the
great things about
benefits, yeah, I was gonna say if you buy it, you get
it
an
gets
awesome UI.
yeah, it's pretty. And like I said, I spend a lot of time doing demos and presentations, and I like pretty whenever I'm doing stuff like that. So this is my home network, right? I have AT&T service. I've got a Dream Router 7 and one switch and one U7 Pro to cover my house. I typically have 25 to 30 devices connected at any given time, which produces 30 to 50 flow records per second that I can leverage for data. It's great to have this view of my network, but again, back to that curiosity, I wanted to know what all these things are doing. And so I brought up ElastiFlow. I pointed the Dream Router to the collector and started seeing some very interesting data. So if I'm looking over the last 24 hours, everything looks pretty normal until you get to, there he is, 83,000 sessions in the past 24 hours. So if I take a look at that, this one device talking to predominantly DNS, right? 28,000 sessions of DNS.
Yeah, just a handful.
And all in 14 pages of other devices. And so, what serves, then we can take a look with ElastiFlow very easily and see, what are these sessions, right? There's a ton of HTTP data, a ton of DNS data. We can look at the apps and see, all right, yep, Google DNS. That's who we're using for DNS right here at the top. That's what we expect to see. And, like I said before, it's pretty interesting that it talks throughout the throughout the world, right? We got some Singapore over here, we got some Latin America over here, California, northern, central U.S. And this is in fact an Elegoo 3D printer. Why is it talking to these people? I don't know. The majority of its transactions are DNS related, but it does make it does have a lot of conversations with strangers, if you will. So it's been very interesting to learn this, and it goes on and on because I have light bulbs, some Govee light bulbs for we got them at Christmas to do the nice Christmas lights, and they talk to things all over the world too. It's very interesting what you can see whenever you plug in something like ElastiFlow.
Nice. So Madison, how about you? Let's, from the other perspectives, we have our sales engineer taking a look at his Warhammer 3D printer, getting all your stuff set up. Madison, curious to see from your side, what does that look like?
Yeah. So let me share mine as well. Just like what I was talking about earlier, same situation. I went to my talker's view and realized this address right here is the address of my doorbell. This is historical data, so I'm doing the last day. This was on, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever I realized the situation. But that is the device. I saw that it was reading out or sending a lot of data. You see here with the data traffic locality set to public, this is that IP address reaching out to other addresses. I actually went into the flow records for this device. I could see all of the addresses that it was trying to connect to, going out to, Cloudflare and things like that. I looked through the addresses here and was able to do a search to figure out that the majority of the IP addresses that it was reaching out to were Cloudflare, AWS, AWS's S3 specifically. The range was for S3. And then the last one was some kind of Google address. I'm wondering if it was probably Google's notification services, because I do know that the particular doorbell that I have installed, that it uses, I can't remember what it's called, but the Google service to send notifications in app. So I'm guessing that it was trying to send that information so that if I had the app open, which I didn't even install the app, assuming I had the app, I would have gotten notifications about, motion detection and things like that. So I was able to see all of that and then cut it off the next day and confirm from the public view that there's no data transfer happening again. No flow records because it's gone. It's not sending anything out anymore.
That's funny because I did exactly the opposite. As soon as I found mine, I was like, oh, this is going to be good to show. And so I made sure it could do whatever it wanted to do.
So you're thinking about, all right,
Fair
these
enough.
are all the, the things I want to show off to our customers. Say, this is what you want to catch. This is what you want to identify early on. And then Madison is he's that end user.
Get it out. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. And like, I just feel the need to point out, so earlier we were talking about, open source tooling, and Brad, you showed your environment, you're using ElastiFlow through Elastic, and then Madison using OpenSearch. So just love truly two completely different perspectives, from a sales engineer to an SRE. So just love seeing, the different utilization of ElastiFlow. Now, question for you both, and Madison, I think this is particularly one for you. Now, this is not what your home lab looks like when you first set it up, right? That dusty old laptop that you got, that hand-me-down. I'm curious, as you upgrade your home lab, what does that decision process look like? Why are we upgrading things? Is it like use case based? Is it, ooh, cool, heard about a new tool that I want to check out? Or is it marketing hype?
It's a little bit of all of the above, probably. Obviously, new shiny thing is always fun to get. I think my most recent upgrade was getting an NVMe style NAS, and that was mostly because my media library had gotten large enough at that point. I had just been archiving and uploading all of my CDs and DVDs and Blu-rays. And Blu-rays tend to be fairly large, even if you use like Handbrake or something like that to compress them down. They're still like pretty big. And so once the Blu-ray library has gotten big enough, I realized like I can't put this on just like an SSD, a single SSD, and hope for the best anymore. Especially because like a lot of my family has logins to my media server. So that's where, it was like, okay, it's time to build an NAS. So I set one up. There's a bunch of cool ones out there. There's Synology ones. There's Ugreen ones. I ended up with a B-Link NAS, but there's so many out there. And I think that's one of the cool things about NASs nowadays is that they can be your one-stop shop for a home lab. Like if you just need to do some media management and some light office work and things like that, all you need is a NAS now. You don't even have to get like 6 different drives. You can just put one drive in it for now, and then build out as as time goes. Because I know, especially now with the way that RAM and storage prices are, it's hard to quantify building out a whole new setup. But NASs are, I think, is like the good. I have nothing. Let's start off, but I want to be a little bit more serious about it. Just grab a NAS with a single drive and then start building out from there. Yeah, exactly.
It's funny. The same story continues, right? Because I have a Synology NAS, which is plug and play. Off you go, and everything I need is right in there. The software is super easy to manage and deploy. It does my photo backups. I do photography on the side as my hobby, so I have tons. I've got 12 terabytes of photos that from the year 20 years of photography, and it just, again, that same kind of add to cart attitude. I went for simple, but Synology being very good in what you can have access to and control and the extra feature set that they have, but it's not completely open like Madison's is, where I'm sure I can share things out to other people and all that good stuff, but I just haven't even bothered because I needed it to back up my photos and my wife's laptop, and done.
Lock it down.
And the ubiquity of or I guess the change in the scenery, I guess, with the software world, I've seen a lot more people start using their own Kubernetes clusters as home labs, which is a pretty wild statement because you would think like Kubernetes is pretty complex, pretty intense. Why are people doing that? But I think that it's become so standard nowadays in a lot of deployment architectures that it's almost gotten to the level of like, okay, I can just Docker install this. It's become a similar concept where it's like, there's a Helm chart for that, so just Helm install it. And that's what's kind of really enabled me a lot is I have Rancher's K3s which is just a really small distribution of Kubernetes. And it's pretty hands off. It's like a one command script to get set up. And then they have a system upgrader built in that you can enable that so it'll keep itself up to date for you. So from a time and management standpoint, I run one command on all of my nodes and then enable system updates. And then I don't have to worry about Kubernetes management anymore. And now I have a whole avenue to just Helm install, open web UI. Okay, cool. Now I have an AI front end. Helm install Jellyfin, and now I have a media server. Helm install, Matrix or Bitwarden or Grafana. There's so many apps out there that are Helm compatible now that it becomes a very a la carte style of, whatever you want or need, you just throw it straight into your network. And, now you have whatever that tool is for you to play around with.
Nice, but still be able to monitor it using, the community version of ElastiFlow.
Yeah. And all the fancy stuff that you would see any, DevOps or SRE engineer, you can enable all of the high availability, self-healing stuff and that visibility and observability of, your logs, your metrics, your network traces, all of that. You can do all of that at home and it's free and you can just set it up. I don't know. It's really crazy how the ecosystem has grown over the last few years. Cause I feel like something like that would have been so daunting even 2 or 3 years ago. And now it's fairly standardized.
It's an interesting point, Madison, because it's like the line between what we're doing during the day at work and what we're using at home is really blurry now. I use a lot of the
By
same
design
tools.
on my part, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I use a lot of the same stuff. I have a Proxmox server on a very over-engineered gaming machine that I had that is running 4 Linux VMs now that I have everything. I'm doing everything Docker, right? So a little different, but same thing. It's got all of our platform on it, ElastiFlow, Elasticsearch, and then Madison actually helped me put Mermin in there so that I've got there's a little Kubernetes on my network too. So it's amazing how much that, it just bleeds into, the day starts and it ends. And I'm not sure when work stopped and started. So
I think that's a good thing,
I can definitely echo that.
Oh, it's a great thing, especially if, I'm lucky. I think that being an SE is the best job in the world. So I don't mind living it all the time.
Well, I'll fight you for that. I think SRE is pretty great too. And it's the same situation here as well. It's like, I'm deploying the same style of architecture, both at home and for work. So it's the same headspace and you're learning and understanding the same tool set, which I think is a huge enabler.
I love that validation. That's awesome. So we talk about a lot of things that we love, what's working really well, what we like, why we're upgrading. Let's talk about the flip side, right? What are some things that are maybe overhyped or some things that we tried where it's like, yikes, all right, let's rewind and rip that out.
I know my number one is probably, I know I've talked about a NAS, but I tried to do a direct attached storage originally. So I had one of those SSD hard drive enclosures that connects over USB or Thunderbolt. And I don't know how else to say it. It was miserable. It was really hard to get working correctly. It was really slow. I would have failures because I was trying to do a little RAID array with it, and software RAID for it would just fall apart a lot of times because it was all over USB controllers. It was just miserable, honestly. And I could have saved so much headache and heartache if I had just bought a NAS. Just go ahead and get a network attached storage and don't worry about having to plug in specific things and getting all the drivers right and stuff like that. It's not even worth it. Especially now that, disks are so expensive. It's like, do you really want to mess around with physical disks when you can have a setup that just works over a network connection? To me, that's a no-brainer.
For me, it's, even though we've kind of joked about me being the add to cart guy, that is not all it's cracked up to be. right? Because you do lose some control, there is a cost associated with it. I think, the fact that you can do everything I've done for $0 is just hugely different than what it was. I've been in the industry for a long time. I remember having, work buy me a Solaris server. It's going to tell a lot of people how old I am real quick. Buy me a Solaris server ages ago to run product on and do testing with and all that. And now, a Linux distro on a free Proxmox, and you can do anything you want. It's amazing.
Nice. All right. Time for my favorite segment of the show. We like to wrap up our episodes doing some hot takes. So, Madison, let's go back to you. What is your hot take when it comes to home labs?
I think the most expensive part of a home lab is time. I know that's
time.
Yeah, I know that's like a little bit of the and not what people are thinking about, because a lot of times you look at it and you go, oh wow, you have a cluster at home, or you have like a home lab that's got to be thousands of dollars, and you've got to have done all these crazy things. But I've probably spent more energy time wise than money wise. Like I was saying before, like I started with a laptop that I replaced the hard drive on and added some RAM to, and that was my server. So you really can get started for like dirt cheap, $50, something like that. Go buy an old router, go get an old laptop that someone's giving away or getting rid of, and boom, you have a home lab. But the trade-off is time, and I think that nowadays, if you look at how everything is growing and how fast it is to develop new solutions and use off the shelf solutions, that time is becoming cheaper as well in a good way. So I know the hot take is that it takes, the most expensive part is time, but the time is getting cheaper. And I think that if you're interested or curious about it, now's the time. Now's when you should try it out, because it's never been faster to set up a home lab.
Awesome. Brad, how about you? What's your hot take?
Yeah, the two things. One, to pile on to Madison there, don't forget things like Facebook Marketplace. You can find amazing equipment very cheap. I recently upgraded my internet provider from a 1 gig line to a 2 gig line for no reason whatsoever. I don't need that much bandwidth, but it was available and it was cheaper. So that's what we have. Well, when the tech was here installing it, he didn't realize that one of my Ethernet cables was actually power over Ethernet. And he plugged it into my Ubiquity router, then popped and fizzled and is no more. So that's my hot take. Literally hot take. Don't plug a powered cable into something that's not expecting power.
It's an expensive mistake.
Yeah, thankful. I will say kudos to AT&T. They have had amazing customer service, getting it replaced, no problem. So good. I was quite pleased with that process.
Good to know. Awesome. Well, Madison and Brad, thank you so much for joining today, sharing your best practices, giving us a look behind the scenes, what your home labs look like. We're going to be sharing a blog that dives into what this looks like. So it'll actually list out the tools that we're using, hardware, software, and some more of those best practices. But yeah, thank you both so much for joining.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks. It's a lot of fun.